Willow Grant pressed her heels into the mare's heaving sides and begged the animal for speed it no longer had in its body. Behind her, 3 riders cut through the thick summer dusk, and their shouts rode the hot Nebraska wind straight into her spine. She did not look back. She could not. If she looked back, she would see her stepfather's face in every one of them, and she would forget how to breathe. Her mother was dead because of that man. And tonight, Willow Grant had finally run out of places left to hide. Before her story begins, if you believe a woman's fight for her own freedom deserves to be heard tonight, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and stay with Willow all the way through to the final word. And leave a comment telling me which city you are watching from this evening, so I can see just how far Willow's story has been carried across the country. The mare was finished. Willow felt it in the animal's shoulders before she heard it in its breath, that deep rattling pull that told her the horse had given every mile it had to give. She leaned over its neck and whispered the same 2 words she had been whispering for the last 11 miles. "Please, please." The mare stumbled. "No." She pulled gently on the reins, steadying the animal. "No, girl, not yet. Not yet. Just a little farther, please." But the mare was done. Willow felt the truth of it climb her thighs through the saddle, and she slid down before the horse could collapse under her. Her boots hit the dirt and her knees almost folded. "Thank you," she breathed into the mare's steaming neck. "Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Then she ran. She ran off the trail into the tall summer grass, and she did not stop running until her lungs burned and her vision narrowed and she dropped into a shallow ditch and had to clamp both hands over her mouth to keep from crying out. Hooves. 3 sets. Coming up fast. Willow pressed her cheek flat to the dirt and prayed the way her mother had prayed. Quietly. Fiercely. Without closing her eyes once. The riders slowed. "There's the horse," one of them called out. His voice was young, almost bored. "She's on foot then." "Then she ain't far." That second voice. Willow knew that second voice the way a child knows the sound of a belt being unbuckled in the next room. Elias Keene, her stepfather's right hand. The man who had held her mother's wrists behind her back the last time Moses Haddon had struck her. "Spread out," Elias said. "Mr. Haddon wants her breathing. And if she ain't, then Mr. Haddon won't be the one you answer to, and neither will I." The riders split. Saddle leather creaked. Hooves moved off in 3 directions. Willow did not move. She counted to 100 in her head the way her mother had taught her. Then to 100 again. Only then did she dare to lift her face from the dirt. She crawled. She crawled on her belly through the ditch for what felt like an hour. And when the ditch ended, she kept crawling through the grass until her elbows were raw and her dress was dark with damp earth. Only when she was certain she was beyond the ring of their search did she come up to a crouch. Then finally she stood. She walked. She walked west. West was all she had. Her mother had told her once in a voice soft enough that Moses Haddon could not hear it through the wall, that if anything ever happened, Willow was to go to Fort Kearney. There was a woman there, a Mrs. Wilson. She kept a dress shop. She had known Willow's mother when they were both girls in St. Joseph before any of the bad years. "She'll know you," her mother had whispered. "She'll take you in. You just say your name, sweet girl. She'll know." Willow had never laid eyes on Mrs. Wilson. Her mother had been dead for 4 weeks. She did not know the path. She did not know the distance. She only knew west, and she only knew that if Moses Haddon's men caught her before she reached that town, no one on earth would ever find her bones. She walked until the light was gone. She walked until the moon threw her shadow long across the grass. And when her left boot caught in a prairie dog hole and her ankle turned with a bright hot crack inside her body, she dropped where she stood and bit down on her own sleeve to keep from screaming. She rocked. She did not cry. She had not cried since the day she buried her mother in a dress that wasn't even her mother's, and she was not about to start now. When she could breathe again, she stood. She took 1 step on the ankle, then another. Each one was worse than the last. "Keep walking," she whispered to herself. "Keep walking, keep walking, keep walking." She said it out loud the way her mother used to pray out loud when Moses was drunk. She walked another mile that way, maybe less. She lost track. Then she saw the light. It was small, and it was warm, and it was yellow. And for a long moment she was sure she was imagining it the way a dying woman in a church story might imagine a lamp in the window of her childhood home. She stopped. She stared. It did not go away. A cabin. Her first thought was to keep walking. A cabin meant a man, and a man meant danger, and danger was the one lesson her stepfather had taught her well enough that she would never need to learn it twice. Her second thought was that her ankle was not going to hold another mile. She slid her hand into the inside pocket of her ruined traveling dress, and her fingers closed around the small, bone-handled derringer her mother had kept sewn into the lining of her own coat for 20 years. 2 shots. That was all it held. If it was one man, that might be enough. She limped toward the light. She was still 50 yards from the cabin when a voice came out of the dark behind her, calm and close and unhurried. "Evening, ma'am." Willow spun so fast her ankle almost gave out beneath her. The derringer was in her hand before her fingers had asked permission, and she had it leveled at a tall shape standing not 10 feet away, a shape she had not heard, had not sensed, had not known was there. "Don't move." Her voice came out thinner than she wanted. "Don't you move one more step." "I ain't moving, ma'am." "Who are you?" "My name's Ethan Galloway. That there's my cabin you're walking toward." "Stay back." "I'm standing still, ma'am. You can see I am." Willow's hand was shaking. She hated that it was shaking. She steadied it with her other hand the way her mother had taught her when she was 9 years old, and she made her voice sound the way her mother had sounded when the sheriff finally came to the house the night Moses broke her arm. "I will shoot you, Mr. Galloway. I will." "I believe you, ma'am." "Don't you come any closer." "I won't." "I mean it." "Yes, ma'am. I hear you fine." The moon shifted, and she could see him better. He was tall. He was lean. His hands were held out from his sides, where she could see them plain. He was not wearing a gun belt. She could not tell if that was because he didn't own one, or because he had seen her coming and set it down before he ever spoke. That thought made her hand shake worse. "Where's your rifle?" she asked. "On the porch, ma'am, 20 paces behind you." "Why'd you leave it there?" "Because you're hurt and you're scared, and I didn't want to scare you any worse than you already been scared tonight." "Don't you tell me what I am." "No, ma'am." Willow took a breath. Her ankle was screaming. Her arm was shaking. The derringer was growing heavier by the second, the way a small thing will when you have been holding it too long. "What do you want?" she said. "To get you off that ankle, ma'am, that's all." "How do you know about my ankle?" "I've been watching you walk the last 300 yards. "You've been watching me?" "Yes, ma'am." "Why didn't you say something sooner?" "Because a woman coming out of the dark with a pistol in her pocket usually has a reason for it, and I didn't care to be the reason she decided to use it." Willow stared at him. She did not lower the gun. "There are men looking for me," she said. "I reckoned." "They will kill me if they find me." "I reckoned that too." "They might kill you." "Well, ma'am." Ethan Galloway shifted his weight slow and easy. "That'll be a problem for later." "You don't even know me." "No, ma'am. You don't know what I done." "You haven't done anything, ma'am. You're running from a man, not toward one. I can tell the difference." Something in Willow's chest cracked. It was the smallest possible crack. The kind a glass makes when you set a hot thing inside a cold one, a sound no one hears. But it was there, and she felt it, and she hated herself for feeling it. "I cannot trust you," she said. "No, ma'am, you cannot." "Then why should I walk into your cabin?" "Because your ankle's broke and there's weather coming up from the south, and whoever you're running from will ride right through this grass inside the hour. And that cabin is the only roof for 8 miles in any direction a woman might pick." "How do I know you won't hurt me?" Ethan Galloway was quiet for a long moment. "You don't, ma'am," he said. "You don't know a single thing about me, and I can't make you know it in the next 10 minutes. But I'll tell you this. You can keep that pistol in your hand the whole way to my door. You can keep it in your hand the whole time you're inside. You can keep it in your hand all night if you want. I will not ask you to set it down. I will not come near it. And if you point it at me, I will not raise a hand to stop you. Why? Because a woman like you, ma'am, has already met too many men who would. Willow's mouth was dry. She lowered the gun. Not all the way, just 1 inch. Galloway, she said. Yes, ma'am. You walk in front of me. Yes, ma'am. You walk slow. Yes, ma'am. And you do not say one word unless I ask you to. Yes, ma'am. He turned as carefully as a man who knows he is being watched, and he walked back toward the cabin at the pace of a man leading a skittish colt. Willow limped behind him. Every step sent a white shock up through her leg. The derringer stayed in her hand. Her knuckles were white around it. At the porch he stopped. Rifle's on that chair, ma'am. I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to hang it on the hook inside the door. That way, it ain't near either one of us while we sit. That all right with you? Go on. He did exactly what he said he would. He did not once let his hands leave her line of sight. The door creaked open. Ethan Galloway stepped in, and Willow Grant stepped in behind him, and for the first time in 4 weeks, she stood under a roof that did not belong to Moses Haddon. She did not sit. There's a chair at the table, ma'am. I will stand. Your ankle. I said I will stand. Yes, ma'am. He moved to the stove. He did not turn his back to her for more than a second at a time. He took down a tin cup from a shelf and set it on the table without ever shifting his hands out of her sight. I got coffee, he said. I got a little cornbread. I got smoked pork, but I reckon you ain't got much of a stomach for that tonight. I do not want anything. No, ma'am, I am not hungry. No, ma'am. I do not need your food. No, ma'am. Stop saying no, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. A sound came out of Willow's throat. It might have been a laugh. She was not sure. She had not made a sound like that in a long time, and she did not trust it. Ethan did not look at her. He set a cup of water on the table and stepped back to the far wall. That is just water, ma'am, he said. You can see I have not put anything in it. I would take a drink of it myself to show you, but I do not want to crowd you. Willow stared at the cup. Her tongue felt like leather inside her mouth. She limped the 3 steps to the table. She kept the gun in her right hand. She picked the cup up with her left. She drank. The water was cold. She drank the whole cup without stopping, and when she set it down, her hand was shaking so badly she almost dropped it. More? Ethan asked. Yes. He refilled it. He stepped back. She drank again. When the second cup was empty, she set it down, and she looked at the stranger across the table from her, and she said the only thing she could think to say. What is your price, ma'am? For the roof, for the water, for not handing me over to them when they come. Ma'am, I ain't charging you a thing. Every man charges something. Ethan Galloway looked at her then, really looked. She saw his eyes in the lamplight for the first time, and they were not what she had expected. They were not kind exactly. They were tired. They were the eyes of a man who had seen something he could not unsee long before tonight. Ma'am, he said, whoever taught you that, he was wrong. Willow's eyes burned. She did not let the tears come. Far off, the summer thunder rolled low across the plains. Closer, much closer, she heard something else. Hooves. 3 sets of them, coming toward the cabin at a steady, patient pace. Ethan heard them the same second she did. His head turned slowly toward the door. Ma'am? I hear them. How many men are you running from? 3 tonight, a dozen by tomorrow. And the man who sent them? Willow's grip on the derringer tightened until her whole hand ached. His name is Moses Haddon, she said. He is my stepfather, and 4 weeks ago he killed my mother with his hands. Ethan Galloway was silent for exactly 1 heartbeat. Then he walked as calm as a man going to fetch a pitcher from the well to the hook behind the door, and he lifted down his rifle. Mr. Galloway. Yes, ma'am. What are you doing? I'm loading a rifle, ma'am. I did not ask you to load a rifle. No, ma'am, you did not. Then why are you loading one? Ethan slid a cartridge into the chamber without looking at her. He worked the lever smooth as a man who had done it every day of his life. Because a man who would kill his wife in her own house, he said quietly, will kill her daughter in mine. And I have lived out here on my own for 11 years, ma'am, and I have learned a thing or two about the kind of men who ride up on a cabin at midnight looking for a woman. So you go ahead and keep that pistol of yours pointed at me if it makes you feel safer. It won't trouble me. But I mean to be ready when they come through that door, and I would be obliged if you would step back from the window. Willow did not move. She stared at him. She stared at the rifle in his hands. She stared at the door. She stared at the small, warm yellow lamp on the table, the first warm light she had stood under since her mother had died. The hooves were closer now. She could hear them clearly. She could hear voices with them. 2, 3. Men talking in the low, easy way of men who were certain of their work. Mr. Galloway, she whispered. Yes, ma'am. If they kill you because of me, I will never forgive myself. Ethan Galloway finished loading his rifle. He turned to face her. He did not smile. He did not speak gently. He looked her in the eye across the table, and for the first time all night, his voice was not calm at all. It was hard. It was sure. It was the voice of a man who had made a decision long before she had ever walked into his yard. Ma'am, he said, they ain't going to kill me. And they ain't going to kill you. Not in this house. Not tonight. Not while I am standing. Outside in the darkness, a horse pulled up short and a man's voice called out across the yard. Galloway? You in there, Galloway? We need a word. Willow Grant looked at the door, and Ethan Galloway stepped in front of her. Galloway, you hear me in there? Ethan did not answer. He lifted one finger to his lips without ever taking his eyes off the door, and he pointed Willow toward the far corner of the cabin behind the heavy iron stove. She did not argue. Her ankle almost gave out twice on the way, but she made it, and she crouched down behind the cold iron, with the derringer still locked in her fist. Galloway, a man ain't deaf, is he? Who's asking? Ethan called back, and his voice had changed. It was slower. It was lazier. It was the voice of a man who had just been pulled out of a half-sleep by fools at his door and nothing more. Name's Keene, Elias Keene. I ride for Moses Haddon out of Red Cedar County. Don't know him. Well, he knows of you. Says you got a reputation for minding your own business out here, and that's a reputation worth something to us tonight. Is it? We're hunting a woman Galloway, young, dark-haired, rode a gray mare into the ground about 4 miles east. Track leads this way. A lot of ground leads this way. We figured you might have seen her. I've been asleep. A man who sleeps that sound out here ain't long for this country. A man who wakes a stranger up at midnight ain't either. Willow heard the laughter then. 3 men laughing the way wolves breathe. She pressed her back harder against the wall and tried to make her own breath quieter than theirs. Open the door, Galloway. Let us have a look inside. Just a look. We'll be gone. Ain't opening the door. Why not? Because a man who opens his door at midnight to 3 riders he don't know is a man who wakes up dead, Mr. Keene, and I ain't planning on waking up dead. We ain't here for you. Then you're leaving. Galloway. You're leaving, Mr. Keene. Go on. Ride out the way you came. I got nothing for you and you got nothing for me, and the dark out here eats men who stand in dooryards too long. There was a long silence. Willow could hear her own heart. She could hear the small creak of Ethan's boot as he shifted his weight a half-inch. She could hear, too, the soft, slow breath he took, the kind a man takes when he has already decided what he is going to do, and he is only waiting for the other man to decide the same. Keene spoke again. His voice had dropped. It had gone flat. Mr. Haddon pays $500 for her, Galloway, alive. Ethan did not answer. $700. Last offer. Ethan did not answer. $1,000. Mr. Keene. Yes. Did your mother ever tell you, Ethan said quietly, that the worst sound a man can make is the sound of his own price? The silence after that was different. It was the silence of a man who had just understood something he did not want to understand. "Galloway," Keene said, "you are making a mistake." "I have made plenty." "You do not know who that woman is." "I know who she ain't." "Meaning?" "She ain't yours." Willow's eyes closed for a half-second. Just a half. It was the closest she had come to weeping in 4 weeks, and she swallowed it down the way her mother had taught her to swallow everything. Outside, a horse shifted. A spur chimed. Keene was stepping down from his saddle. Ethan's voice came again, and this time it was not slow, and it was not lazy. "Mr. Keene, you put that boot back in that stirrup." "Or what?" "Or you will find out what an 11-year rifle does to a man at 12 yards through a pine door." A long, slow beat. Then Keene laughed. It was not a real laugh. "You ain't gonna shoot through your own door, Galloway." "Try me." "You'll hit your own woman for all I know. She ain't mine either. She's her own. And she is standing behind me, Mr. Keene, with a pistol of her own pointed at the same spot my rifle is. So you want to come through that door, you come through 2 guns, and you come through 'em in the dark. And you come through 'em for $1,000, your boss ain't even going to pay you once you're dead." There was another silence. Willow did not breathe. Then she heard the creak of a man's boot going back into a stirrup. "We'll be back, Galloway." "I expect so." "With more men. Bring 'em." "You do not know what you just bought yourself." "Mr. Keene?" "What?" "I bought myself a quiet night. Now ride." The hooves turned. They walked first. Then they trotted. Then finally they broke into a canter, and the sound of them faded east across the summer grass until there was nothing left of them at all except the ringing in Willow's ears. She did not move. She could not. Ethan Galloway stood by the door for a long time, with the rifle still leveled at the wood. He did not lower it for a full minute, maybe 2. When he finally did, he did it slowly, like a man setting down something he did not trust yet. "Ma'am." Willow could not speak. "Ma'am, they are gone." "I heard." "You can come out from behind the stove." "I am not sure I can stand." "Take your time." Willow tried. Her legs would not hold her. She braced her palm on the stove iron to push herself up, and her ankle folded underneath her, and she sat down hard on the plank floor and dropped her face into her hands for the first time all night. She did not cry. She shook. It was worse than crying. It was the kind of shaking that comes out of a body when it has been afraid for too long and finally is allowed 1 second to stop. Ethan did not come near her. He set the rifle down against the wall. He walked to the far side of the cabin. He pulled a folded wool blanket off a peg, and he carried it back and he laid it down on the floor about 5 feet from where she sat. Then he stepped back again. "For your shoulders, ma'am." "I do not need it." "No, ma'am. But it is there." Willow stared at the blanket. After a long time, she reached for it. She pulled it around her shoulders. The wool smelled of cedar and smoke and a little bit of horse, and something inside her chest loosened by exactly 1 thread. "Mr. Galloway." "Yes, ma'am." "You lied for me." "Yes, ma'am." "Why?" He did not answer right away. He walked back to the stove. He stirred up the coals. He set a kettle on the iron without looking at her. "Ma'am," he said, "I had a sister." Willow lifted her head. "I had a sister," he said again, and his voice was quieter than it had been all night. "She was 19 years old. She married a man out of Topeka, and that man was not a good man. And she wrote me a letter one winter that I did not open for 3 weeks, because I was off on a cattle drive, and there was no mail out where we were. By the time I rode back and opened that letter, my sister had been in the ground 9 days. Willow did not speak. "I do not talk about her, ma'am. I have not said her name out loud in 6 years. I am not going to say it tonight, but I will tell you this. A man knocked on my door an hour ago, and it was not Elias Keene. It was me. It was me 6 years ago knocking on a door that should have opened." He turned then. He looked at her. "That door opens tonight, ma'am," he said, "whether you ever trust me or not." Willow's throat closed. She did not let the tears come. She had not let them come for her mother, and she was not going to let them come for a stranger, no matter what he had just said. But her hand, the one holding the derringer, lowered itself for the first time all night and rested on her knee. "Mr. Galloway." "Yes, ma'am." "What was her name?" Ethan did not answer for a long moment. Then he said, "Clara." "Clara Galloway." "Yes, ma'am." "I am sorry." "I know you are." The kettle began to hiss. Ethan lifted it with a rag and poured hot water into a tin cup and then into a shallow basin that he set beside her on the floor. He backed off again before he spoke. "Ma'am?" "Yes?" "That ankle needs seeing to." "I can do it?" "Yes, ma'am. But a man who grew up setting horse legs knows a thing or two about a human one. If you will let me. I will not lay a hand above your boot top, and you can keep that pistol on my head the whole time." Willow stared at him. She stared at him for a long time. Then very slowly, she pulled up the hem of her ruined dress just enough to show her boot. She did not lower the derringer. She only moved it a quarter turn so that it rested easy against her thigh instead of aimed at his chest. "Do it quick," she said. "Yes, ma'am." He moved the way he had moved all night, slow and plain, and always in her line of sight. He unlaced her boot with fingers that did not tremble once, and he eased it off her foot, and when she gasped, he paused for exactly 3 seconds before he went on. "It ain't broke, ma'am." It felt broke. "It is bad sprained, that is all. I can wrap it. You'll walk on it in 3 days. You'll run on it in 10. "I do not have 3 days." "No, ma'am." "They will come back." "Yes, ma'am." "Tomorrow." "Probably sooner." "With more men." "Yes." Willow closed her eyes. "Mr. Galloway." "Yes, ma'am." "Fort Kearney, how far?" "On a good horse, 8 hours. On that ankle, a day and a half." "I do not have a horse." "You have mine." Willow's eyes opened. "I did not ask for your horse." "No, ma'am. I am offering him." "I do not take from men." "Ma'am." "I do not." Ethan sat back on his heels. He set down the strip of cloth he had been folding. He looked at her plainly. "Ma'am," he said, "you are not taking. I am giving. Those are 2 different things, and I suspect somewhere along the way a man told you they were the same thing and he was a liar. Do not carry his lie into my cabin." Willow's hand tightened on the derringer. Then it loosened. Then so small she almost did not believe she had done it, she nodded. "1 horse," she whispered. "1 horse. And I will send money for him. When I can." "No, ma'am, you will not." "I will." "Ma'am." "I will, Mr. Galloway." He looked at her a long moment. Then, to her surprise, the corner of his mouth moved. It was not a smile. It was the ghost of one. The first crack of light she had seen on his face since she had met him. "All right," he said. "You send the money. I will put it in a jar and never touch it. Deal." "Deal." He went back to wrapping her ankle. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The only sounds in the cabin were the low crackle of the stove, the slow pull of thread through cloth, and the faint, far-off rumble of the summer storm that had been circling the plains all night. When he was done, he tied the wrap off with a small, neat knot, and he sat back. "Ma'am." "Yes." "Can you tell me the name?" "What name?" "The name of the man I am going to have to shoot if it comes to that." Willow looked down at her hands. "Moses Haddon." "Moses Haddon," Ethan repeated, like he was filing the sound of it away behind his teeth. "He married my mother when I was 8. He buried her 4 weeks ago." "Buried her?" "Killed her." "Ma'am, I am sorry." "Do not be sorry, Mr. Galloway. Be awake." Ethan nodded once. "Why is he chasing you?" "Because I know." "Know what?" Willow lifted her eyes. They were dry. They had been dry for 4 weeks, but they were steady. I know he did it, Mr. Galloway. I know what he used. I know where he buried the thing he used. And I know the name of the deputy he paid to write down natural causes in the sheriff's book in Red Cedar County." Ethan's face did not change. "And he knows you know." "He knows I know." "Then he is not chasing a runaway girl." "No, Mr. Galloway. He is chasing a witness." Ethan was silent for a long time. "Ma'am?" "Yes." "How old are you?" 22. 22 years old. He said more to himself than to her. 22 years old, and you have walked 11 miles on a broken ankle, carrying the name of the man who killed your mother in your mouth so that somebody somewhere might finally hear it. I did not think anyone would. Ma'am. Yes. Somebody just did. Willow looked at him. She did not speak. She could not. Her throat had closed up in a way it had not closed in 4 weeks, in a way she had not let it close since the night she had knelt beside her mother's body on the kitchen floor and had whispered, "I will, Mama. I will. I swear to you, I will." Ethan stood. He walked to the table. He blew out the lamp. The cabin went dark except for the red pulse of the stove. "Ma'am?" "Yes. You will sleep on the bed. I will sleep on the floor by the door. The rifle will be across my lap. If any man steps inside this cabin tonight, he will step over me first." "Mr. Galloway?" "Yes, ma'am." "Thank you." "Ma'am." "Yes." "Tomorrow at first light we ride." Willow sat very still in the red dark. "Yes, ma'am." "Mr. Galloway, you said you would give me a horse, not a rider. I changed my mind. You cannot come with me. Ma'am, he will kill you. He can try. He has 20 men. Then I best leave at first light. Mr. Galloway. Yes, ma'am. Why? Ethan was quiet for a long moment in the dark. Because, he said finally, 6 years ago I got a letter 3 weeks too late, and I have spent every night since then wondering what I would have done if I had gotten it in time. Tonight, ma'am, you rode up on my door, and I got the letter in time. Willow pressed her knuckles to her mouth. She did not cry, but her shoulders moved once hard, and the wool blanket shook around her, and Ethan Galloway did not look. He did her the kindness of not looking. He sat down on the floor by the door with his rifle across his knees and his back against the wood, and he did not look at her once, while she sat in the dark and fought the thing inside her chest, down, 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 until she had it pinned back where it belonged. When it was done, she wiped her face with the back of her hand, and she spoke. "Mr. Galloway." "Yes, ma'am?" "I do not trust you." "No, ma'am." "But I believe you." "Yes, ma'am." "That is not the same thing." "No, ma'am, it ain't." "It will have to do." "Yes, ma'am, it will." She laid down on the narrow rope bed in the corner. She did not take off her dress. She did not let go of the derringer. She pulled the wool blanket up to her chin, and she turned her face to the wall, and she listened to the sound of a man breathing steady on the other side of the room. Somewhere miles away, thunder rolled. Somewhere closer, a rider was spurring east toward Red Cedar County with a message for Moses Haddon. And Willow Grant, for the first time in 4 weeks, closed her eyes without being afraid of what she would see on the other side of them. She slept. She slept hard. She slept the way a body sleeps when it has run out of everything it had left to run on, and she did not wake once, not when the storm broke and the rain came down on the roof in sheets, not when the stove cracked and settled, not even when somewhere in the blackest part of the night, Ethan Galloway stood up from his post by the door, walked soft as a cat across the plank floor, and laid his coat over her shoulders before walking back to his rifle and sitting down again. She did not wake until gray light began to crawl in under the door. She opened her eyes. Ethan was already standing. His coat was on her shoulders. His rifle was in his hand. His boots were laced to the knee. "Ma'am?" "Yes." "They are coming." Willow sat up. "How many?" 9. "How far?" "Ridge. Half a mile. Maybe less." "Elias Keene. In front." "And the other man?" Ethan looked at her. What other man, ma'am? Willow's hand tightened on the derringer. The one in a gray coat, she whispered. On a black horse, riding at the back. Ethan moved to the window. He looked out for a long second. Then he turned back to her, and for the first time since she had met him, there was a look on his face that was not calm at all. Ma'am, he said, he is with them. Willow Grant stood up off the bed. Her ankle held. Her hand did not shake. Mr. Galloway. Yes, ma'am. That is Moses Haddon. Willow did not move for 3 seconds. 3 seconds was all she had. She knew it. She could feel it in her teeth. Mr. Galloway. Yes, ma'am. He cannot see me first. No, ma'am. He cannot hear my voice first. No, ma'am. If he hears my voice first, he wins. Then he will not hear it. Ethan Galloway pulled the bar across the door with his left hand, while his right stayed on the rifle. He did it slow. He did it the way a man closes a coffin lid. Ma'am, I need you to tell me one thing. Tell me. Does he know this ankle is bad? No. Does he know I am with you? He knows someone is with me. He does not know who. Does he know you have a gun? He gave me the gun. Ethan's head turned half an inch. He what? 12 years ago, Willow said, and her voice was flat as creekstone. He gave me this derringer on my 10th birthday, and he told me that a woman who did not know how to shoot was a woman who deserved what came for her. He taught me himself, out behind the barn, until I could hit a tin cup at 20 paces. Ma'am? Yes. He taught you how to kill him. He taught me how to kill him. Ethan did not smile. Something behind his eyes moved, and it was not a smile, but it was close enough. Outside, a horse pulled up 20 yards from the porch. Then another. Then another. The sound of 9 animals settling into the dirt is not a quiet sound, and none of those men were trying to be quiet. The voice that came next was not Elias Keene's. Willow. It was low. It was calm. It was the voice of a man who had sat at the head of her dinner table for 14 years, and it went through her like cold river water poured straight down her spine. Willow. I know you're in there, sweet girl. She closed her eyes. Ethan was watching her face. She felt him watching. Ma'am? I am fine. Your hand is shaking. I said I am fine. Yes, ma'am. Willow. The voice outside rose patient and warm and terrible. You come on out now. I ain't angry. I never was angry. Your mama raised you better than to go running off into the prairie like some scared little rabbit. Come on out. We'll go home. We'll sort it out. I promise you. Willow's knees almost folded. Ethan saw it. He did not move toward her. He only spoke quiet under the voice from outside. Ma'am, that is a liar's voice. I know. I have heard 1,000 liars. That is the worst kind. The kind that sounds like forgiveness. I know, Mr. Galloway. Then do not listen to it. I am not listening. You are listening, ma'am. A little. Do not. Willow opened her eyes. Mr. Haddon, she called out, and her voice cut through the plank door, steady as a blade laid flat. You lay one boot on this porch and you will die on it. A silence. Then slowly Moses Haddon laughed. There's my girl, he said. There's my mama's girl. Willow, sweet Willow, you open that door. No. You open it, or I will have my men open it for you. And I do not want that, Willow. Your mama would not have wanted that. Do not use her. She was my wife. She was my mother. She was both, sweet girl. Do not use her. Another silence. Then the voice changed. It dropped an octave. It went quiet, and it went cold, and it was the voice Willow had feared her entire life. Willow, there is a man in there with you. There is no one. Do not lie to me, girl. I can smell a man's tobacco from my saddle. Whoever he is one man. I have 9. And before the sun is full up, I will have 20. And before the day is out, I will have the United States Army, because I have sent a rider to Fort Kearney with a letter that says, my stepdaughter has lost her mind and has been taken hostage by a known horse thief who holds a cabin 12 miles south of the fort. Ethan's face did not change. "That ain't true, Mr. Haddon," he called back. "And you know it ain't." "I do know it ain't, friend, but the colonel at Fort Kearney does not. And a telegraph is a wonderful thing." Willow's stomach turned. She felt the floor tilt under her. Fort Kearney. Mrs. Wilson. The one plan she had. Gone. Gone before she had even walked out of this cabin. "Mr. Galloway," she whispered. "Yes, ma'am." "He is lying. He is lying about most of it. Most of it. The telegraph part is real, ma'am. A man like that has men at every wire in 4 counties. But the army will not move for a day, maybe 2, maybe 3 if the colonel is the kind who reads his letters twice. That is not enough time. It is enough for Mrs. Wilson, ma'am, if we ride now. He will not let us ride. No, ma'am, he will not." Outside, Moses Haddon was still talking. His voice had gone sweet again, the way it always went sweet right before the worst of it. "Willow, listen to me, sweet girl. I brought someone with me. Someone you will want to see. Someone you will trust. Come to the window. Just the window. Just look." Willow did not move. "Ma'am?" "I will not look." "Ma'am, you need to know who he brought." "I will not look at him, Mr. Galloway." "No, ma'am. Not him. The other one." Willow's jaw set. She stood up off the bed. Her ankle screamed and she made her face let none of it show. She limped 3 steps and she went to the edge of the window, and she did not put her face in it because her stepfather had not raised a fool. She leaned to the side. She let one eye go around the edge of the frame. She saw Moses Haddon. Gray coat, black horse, the same face. She saw Elias Keene behind him. She saw 7 other men she had never seen in her life. And she saw one man she had. He was sitting a tall bay gelding at Moses's right hand. He was wearing a long black coat and a white collar and a flat black hat, and his hands were folded on the pommel of his saddle, the way they had always been folded on a pulpit. Reverend Amos Tate, the man who had married her mother to Moses Haddon 14 years ago. The man who had buried her mother 4 weeks ago and had said in front of the whole congregation of Red Cedar that Helen Grant Haddon had died of a weak heart. May God rest her soul. Willow stepped back from the window. She did not make a sound. She walked across the cabin floor, slow, her ankle forgotten, her face washed clean of everything it had been carrying, and she sat down on the edge of the bed and she put both hands on her knees, palms up, and she stared at them. Ethan did not speak. He waited. "Mr. Galloway." "Yes, ma'am." "The man beside him, in the collar." "Yes, ma'am." "That is the preacher who buried my mother. I see him. He told me at her grave that he would write down the truth of what happened, and he would keep it in a sealed envelope in the church so that if anything ever happened to me, the sheriff of 3 counties would know where to look." "Ma'am?" "Yes. He has been paid. He has been paid, Mr. Galloway." "I am sorry, ma'am." "I am not sorry." "No, no." Willow lifted her head. Her eyes were dry. They were so dry they almost hurt. "I am awake, Mr. Galloway. That is the difference. For 4 weeks I was asleep and I kept thinking that if I just made it to a good man would help me. And now I know that the only good man I have met since my mother died is the one standing in this cabin, and I do not even know him." "Ma'am." "Yes. You know me enough." Willow looked at him. "Mr. Galloway, we are going to die in this cabin." "No, ma'am. There are 9 of them. There are 2 of us. That is not the same." "No, ma'am, it ain't. It is better." "Better. A man riding for $1,000, ma'am, runs when he is shot at. A woman running for her mother's name does not. Those 9 out there are paid hands. You and I, ma'am, we ain't." Willow looked at him for a long, long second. Then she stood up. "Mr. Galloway." "Yes, ma'am." "How do we ride out of this?" "We do not ride out of the front, ma'am. There is a root cellar door behind the stove. It comes out in the wash behind the cabin. My horse is in a lean-to 30 yards into the tree line west. I can reach him in a minute on foot. They cannot see him from where they are sitting." "1 horse." One horse, ma'am. You ride. And you? I stay. Willow's mouth opened. No. Ma'am. No, Mr. Galloway. Ma'am, listen. I said no. If we both run, ma'am, they catch us both before the sun is an hour up. If one of us is still in this cabin firing through the window, those 9 men out there do not know which one is where. They do not move on the cabin until they know. That buys you 20 minutes. 20 minutes is Fort Kearney, ma'am. 20 minutes is Mrs. Wilson. 20 minutes is your mother's name spoken out loud in a place your stepfather cannot reach. Mr. Galloway? Yes, ma'am? They will kill you. Maybe. They will. Ma'am, I have lived alone in this cabin for 11 years. I have eaten my supper in silence 11 summers running. If I am going to spend a morning firing a rifle so that a woman I met last night can carry her mother's name to a town that will hear it, then, ma'am, that is the best morning I have had in 11 years, and I do not care how it ends. Willow stared at him. Her eyes filled. For the first time in 4 weeks, she let them. Only 2 tears. No more. She wiped them before they reached her jaw. Mr. Galloway? Yes, ma'am. I am not riding. Ma'am? I am not riding without you. Ma'am, that is not... I am not riding without you, Mr. Galloway, and that is my final word on it. You brought a rifle down off a hook last night for a woman you did not know. I will not spend the rest of my life knowing I left a man in a cabin to die for a name I was too scared to carry myself. I will not. Do you hear me, ma'am? Do you hear me, Mr. Galloway? I hear you. Then you come with me. Ma'am, the horse will not carry us both at a gallop, not far, not fast enough. Then we ride him until he cannot, and then we walk. And if they catch us, we fight back to back. And if we die in open country, and not locked in a box. Ethan Galloway looked at her. For the second time that night, something in his face cracked. It was not a smile, but it was close. Yes, ma'am, he said quietly. Then pick up your rifle. Yes, ma'am. Outside, Moses Haddon's voice rose again. Willow, I am done asking nice. I am done, sweet girl. You come out in the next 60 seconds, or I am going to give the word. Ethan moved to the stove. He pulled the iron door away from the back wall with one hand quiet as breath, and Willow saw the cellar hatch in the floor behind it for the first time. Willow. Ma'am, Ethan whispered. Down, now. She went. The ladder was 3 rungs. Her ankle caught on the second, and she bit her sleeve through, and she did not scream, and she did not slow. Ethan came down behind her and slid the iron stove back into place above them with his boot, and the cabin went quiet, and they were in the dark, and there was a low tunnel ahead of them, and he took her elbow for the first time since she had met him, and he did not ask permission because there was no more time for permission. Run, ma'am. I am. Faster. I am Mr. Galloway. Above them they heard it. The door of the cabin shattered inward. Boot heels hit plank. She ain't here. Elias Keene's voice muffled through 3 feet of sod. Mr. Haddon, the cabin is empty. Back door, windows, check the roof, check the cellar. The cellar, sir. The cellar. Mr. Keene, you understand me now. Willow and Ethan ran. The tunnel opened into the wash. Ethan vaulted up into the brush, first rifle in his left hand, and he reached down for her with his right, and he hauled her up, and her ankle gave, and he caught her around the waist before she hit the ground, and he did not apologize, and she did not thank him, because there was no air left for either. West, ma'am, 30 yards. I see him. The horse was a tall roan still saddled from the night before. Ethan threw himself into the seat. He reached down for her. Ma'am, your hand. She took it. He pulled her up behind him with one arm, and she grabbed his coat, and the derringer was still in her fist against his ribs, and the roan wheeled under them before either of them had their seat. Galloway. Elias Keene's voice close. 50 yards, maybe less. Ethan did not answer. He kicked the roan. They ran. The first shot came before they had made 100 yards. It went wide. Willow felt the air of it more than she heard it. The second shot came a half-second later, and it did not go wide. It went through the fat of Ethan's left arm above the elbow, and she heard him grunt, and she heard him say under his breath one single word that was not a curse and not a prayer, but something deeper than both, and he did not slow the horse by an inch. "Mr. Galloway." "Ride, ma'am." "You are shot." "I know I am shot. Ride." "Give me the reins." "Ma'am." "Give me the reins, Mr. Galloway. I can ride anything on 4 legs, and I have been doing it since I was 6 years old. Give them to me." He did. She took them over his shoulder, and she leaned into the horse's neck, the way she had leaned into the mare's last night, and she asked the roan for every mile it had, the way she had not been able to ask the mare and the roan gave. Behind them, a cluster of hooves broke into a gallop. 4, 5, 6 riders, not all 9. Moses had split them to cover all sides of the cabin, and now he was paying for it. "Mr. Galloway." "Yes." "How bad is the arm?" "It is through. It is clean. I will keep the arm." "You are losing blood." "Not enough to matter in the next hour. Ride." "Fort Kearney." "Fort Kearney." "If we do not make it." "We will." "If we do not." "Ma'am." "Yes, Mr. Galloway." "If we do not, then I have still had a better morning than the last 11 years combined. Now ride." Willow rode. Behind them, rising over the sound of the roan's hooves, Moses Haddon's voice came across the summer prairie one last time. It was too far now for words, but she heard the shape of it. She heard the thing inside it. She heard the promise of it, and she did not look back. She rode with a wounded man bleeding steady into her dress front, with a broken ankle hooked into a stirrup that was not hers, with the weight of her mother's name pressed like an iron against her sternum. And she pointed the roan west, and she did not look back, and she did not look back, and she did not look back. 6 riders came on behind them, and somewhere still behind those 6, unhurried, unshaken, already writing in his head the story he would tell the colonel at Fort Kearney when he arrived at its gates 1 hour after she did. Moses Haddon turned his black horse out of the yard, and he let his men do the chasing. Because Moses Haddon had never in his life been the man who chased anything. He had only ever been the man who waited at the end of the road. They rode for 2 hours without speaking. They rode until the roan was foamed to the shoulders, and then they walked him, and then they rode him again, and Willow held Ethan Galloway's weight against her chest with one arm while she worked the reins with the other. And twice in that second hour he slid sideways in the saddle, and she caught him with a strength she did not know her arm had. "Mr. Galloway." "I'm here, ma'am." "Stay with me." "I am." "Say something." "Anything." "Anything." "You ride like a man, ma'am." "That is not a compliment. It is from me." "Keep talking." "Yes, ma'am." "How far?" "Fort's over the next rise, ma'am. Mile. 1.5 miles. "Then stay with me 1.5 miles, Mr. Galloway." "I ain't going anywhere." "You better not." The blood from his arm had gone through her dress front and into her skin, and she felt it on her ribs. It was the warmest thing she had felt in 4 weeks, and she hated that she was thinking about that while a man bled on her. But the mind does strange things at the end of a long ride, and Willow Grant had been at the end of a long ride since the morning she had been born. They topped the rise at a little past 9. Fort Kearney sat out in the grass below them, low and plain and square, and Willow had never seen it before in her life, and her eyes filled the second she saw the flag. "Mr. Galloway." "I see it, ma'am." "I did not think we would." "I did." "You did not." "Ma'am." "Yes." "I did." She kicked the roan. The sentries saw them at 300 yards. 2 men stepped out in front of the gate with rifles across their chests, and a third called back over his shoulder into the yard behind. And by the time Willow pulled the roan up in front of them, there were 6 soldiers in a half circle, and every one of them was pointed at her. "Ma'am, step down from the horse." "I need to see the colonel." "Ma'am, step down. There is a wounded man in my arms." "We see him. Step down. Slow." Willow did not move. "Mr. Galloway needs a doctor." "Ma'am?" "His name is Ethan Galloway, and he has been shot through the arm for helping me, and if you do not get him to a doctor in the next 10 minutes, I will hold every one of you responsible for the rest of my life." A lieutenant stepped forward. Young, clean-shaven, not yet 30. "Ma'am, is your name Willow Grant?" Willow's stomach dropped through the floor of her body. "Yes, ma'am. I am going to ask you to step down slow hands where I can see them. We have instructions on you, ma'am." "Instructions?" "Yes, ma'am." "From who?" "From the colonel, ma'am." "Who gave the colonel his instructions?" The lieutenant did not answer. Willow felt it then. The thing Moses had said through the cabin door, the telegraph, the letter, the writer. He had gotten there first the way he always got everywhere first because men like Moses Haddon did not run, they arrived. "Lieutenant?" "Yes, ma'am." "Before you take me into that fort, I need you to listen to me for 30 seconds. "Ma'am, 30 seconds, Lieutenant, that is all. You can count them on your watch." The lieutenant hesitated. He was young enough to hesitate. An older man would not have. 30 seconds, ma'am. My stepfather is Moses Haddon. 4 weeks ago in Red Cedar County, he killed my mother with his hands in our kitchen. He paid the deputy to write natural causes. He paid the preacher to say the same thing at the grave. He has been hunting me for 4 weeks because I saw it. I walked 11 miles last night with a broken ankle, and this man you see bleeding in my arms took me in because I knocked on his door, and he stood between me and 9 riders at dawn, and he took a bullet for me, and he has not asked for one thing in return, and if you take me into that fort to a colonel who has been told I am a horse thief's hostage, then my mother dies twice. Do you understand me, Lieutenant?" The lieutenant's jaw worked. "Ma'am?" "Yes. I cannot make that judgment. I am not asking you to. Ma'am, my orders. I am asking you to take us to the colonel, both of us, Mr. Galloway and me, together. I will not run. I could not run if I wanted to. And I am asking you to find me a doctor first and the colonel second. That is all." The lieutenant looked at her for a long moment. He looked at Ethan. He looked at the blood on the front of her dress. "Ma'am?" "Yes. Hands off the reins. Slow. I will have the horse walked. My surgeon is through the gate and to the left. I will take you to him personally. And then, ma'am, then I will take you to the colonel." "Thank you, Lieutenant." "Do not thank me yet, ma'am." "No. I thank a man when he is kind. I do not wait." She eased Ethan forward in the saddle and let 2 soldiers take his weight down. He was conscious. Just. His eyes found her as they lowered him onto a stretcher. "Ma'am." "I am here. You tell the truth to the colonel." "I will. All of it. All of it. Do not soften it for him." "I will not soften one word, Mr. Galloway." "That is my girl," he said. It came out of him before he could stop it, and his eyes closed the second it did, and Willow did not know if he had even heard himself say it. She followed the stretcher with her hands on Ethan's good arm until the surgeon's door closed between them, and a corporal stood in her way, and the lieutenant touched her elbow. "Ma'am, the colonel." "Yes." Now, the colonel's name was Harlan Ross. He was 54 years old. He had gray hair, a gray mustache, and the eyes of a man who had been lied to by every kind of human being the American frontier produced and had stopped being surprised by any of it. He was standing when Willow walked in. He did not sit down. "Miss Grant." "Colonel Ross, I have a letter on my desk that says you have been taken against your will by a cabin dweller named Galloway, and that your stepfather is riding 2 hours behind you to recover you. Is that the situation, ma'am?" "No, sir." "No, no, sir, it is not." "Then sit down, Miss Grant, and tell me what the situation is. I have 14 minutes before I have to answer that letter, and I will give every one of them to you." "I will tell you right now, ma'am, I do not like the letter. A man who writes a letter that long and that smooth is usually writing a lie. But I have been fooled before, and I will be fooled again, and I would rather be fooled by you than by him if it comes to it. Sit." Willow sat. She told him. She told him about the kitchen. She told him about the morning of her 8th birthday when Moses Haddon had walked into the house. She told him about every year that followed. She told him about the night her mother had sewn the derringer into her own coat lining and had said, "If anything happens to me, you take this and you go and you do not come back, sweet girl. Do you hear me?" She told him about the morning 4 weeks ago. She told him about the kitchen floor. She told him what Moses had used. She told him where he had buried it. She told him the name of the deputy. She told him the name of the preacher. She told him about the letter her mother had written to Mrs. Wilson in Fort Kearney when Willow was 9 years old, and the letter Mrs. Wilson had written back, and the letter her mother had kept pressed inside a Bible for 13 years. She told him for 11 minutes without stopping once. When she was done, Colonel Harlan Ross sat down at his desk for the first time, and he looked at her. "Miss Grant." "Yes, sir." "Do you have that Bible?" Willow's hand went to the inside of her ruined dress to the pocket her mother had sewn there when she was 12. She drew it out. It was small. It was worn. The leather was cracked along the spine. She laid it on the desk. Colonel Ross did not open it immediately. "Ma'am, before I open this, I want you to know one thing." "Yes, sir." "If what is inside this Bible is what you say is inside this Bible, then I will arrest Moses Haddon the minute he rides through that gate, and I will hold him in this fort until the United States Marshal out of Omaha can ride down and take him into custody, which will be a matter of 4 or 5 days. But if there is nothing in this Bible, Miss Grant, I cannot hold him. Do you understand?" "I understand, sir." "His letter is very good." "Yes, sir, I imagine it is. He writes like an educated man." "He is an educated man, sir. My mother married an educated man. That was part of the problem." Colonel Ross opened the Bible. He turned it in his hands. He turned it again. For a second, Willow thought the letter was gone. She thought, he found it. He took it out. He replaced it. "I have been carrying an empty book for 4 weeks. And then Colonel Ross's thumb caught on the inside back cover, and the leather separated where it had been carefully cut and restitched, and a single folded page the color of old cream slid out onto his desk. He unfolded it. He read it. Willow watched his face. He did not read it twice. He did not need to. "Miss Grant." "Yes, sir." "Your mother was a very careful woman." "Yes, sir. She had to be." "This is her hand." "Yes, sir." "And this list, ma'am. The 7 names at the bottom. Men who Moses Haddon had paid or owed or threatened in the county of Red Cedar over the years preceding her death." "She wrote it in case, sir. She wrote it in case." "And she kept this in her Bible for 13 years. "Yes, sir." "Miss Grant." "Yes, sir." "A woman who writes a letter like this, ma'am, knows she is going to be killed. And she writes it anyway. And she gives it to her daughter. That is not a weak-hearted woman, ma'am. That is the steadiest hand in Nebraska." Willow's throat closed. "Yes, sir." "I am sorry, Miss Grant." "Thank you, sir." "I am going to keep this letter." "Yes, sir." "I am going to arrest your stepfather." "Yes, sir." "I am going to send a rider to Omaha and another to Red Cedar and another to the county seat at Plattsmouth. Before sundown tomorrow, ma'am, there will be no deputy and no preacher in Red Cedar County who does not know that the United States Army is looking at them. Do you understand what I am telling you?" "Yes, sir." "You walked a long way for this, ma'am." "My mother walked it, sir. I just carried it the last mile." Colonel Ross looked at her for a long moment. Then he stood up. "Lieutenant." "Sir?" "Take Miss Grant to Mrs. Wilson's shop. Mrs. Wilson is expecting her, and has been expecting her for 14 years. Tell Mrs. Wilson I said so. Then post 4 men on that shop, armed, and do not let anyone inside it who is not me or a doctor. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." "And Lieutenant." "Sir, when Moses Haddon rides up to the gate of this fort, you send a runner to me, and you do not open the gate. You do not let him inside. You make him wait. I want him in my office, not his." "Yes, sir." Willow stood. Her ankle almost gave. Colonel Ross. "Yes, Miss Grant." "Mr. Galloway." "He is alive, ma'am. My surgeon came by while you were speaking. The bullet went clean. He has lost blood, but he will not lose the arm." Willow did not cry. She had not cried when she told the colonel about the kitchen, and she was not going to cry now. but her hand went to her mouth and she held it there for 1 second before she lowered it. "Sir?" "Yes." "Tell him I said thank you." "I will tell him myself, Miss Grant. Now go." Mrs. Wilson's shop was the third door down from the surgeon's. The woman who opened it was not what Willow had pictured in 14 years of picturing her. She was small. She was narrow. She had hair the color of iron and eyes the color of creek water, and she looked at Willow for exactly 3 seconds, and then she said in a voice so soft it almost was not there, "Sweet Lord, you have your mama's hands." Willow did not make it through the door. She went down on her knees on the step, and Mrs. Wilson was out of the doorway and on the ground with her before the lieutenant could even step forward, and Mrs. Wilson's thin arms were around her shoulders. And Willow, who had not cried in 4 weeks, and who had not been held by a woman in 4 weeks, and who had walked 11 miles on a broken ankle and ridden 20 miles on a shot. Man's horse put her face into the shoulder of a stranger who had loved her mother once, and she wept. She wept for a long time. Mrs. Wilson did not shush her. Mrs. Wilson did not say, "Everything is all right," and Mrs. Wilson did not say, "You are safe now," because Mrs. Wilson had known Helen Grant for 31 years, and Mrs. Wilson knew the difference between a lie and a kindness. Mrs. Wilson only put her cheek on top of Willow's head and rocked her the way a grandmother rocks a fevered child, and she said over and over in a voice that got smaller and smaller each time, "I am so sorry, sweet girl. I am so sorry. I am so sorry." When Willow could breathe again, Mrs. Wilson took her inside. She sat her down. She put a shawl around her shoulders. She put a bowl of broth in her hands, and she did not speak again for 10 minutes, and she only did when Willow lifted her head. "Mrs. Wilson." "Yes, sweet girl." "Did my mother know?" "Know what?" "That she was not going to make it." Mrs. Wilson was quiet for a very long time. "Yes," she said finally. She knew. She had known for a year, maybe more. "She wrote me a letter last summer, Willow. A long letter. She told me that if anything ever happened, you would come. She told me what you looked like. She told me what your voice sounded like. She told me you had her hands. She told you what I looked like. She told me everything, sweet girl. She told me every birthday. She told me every Christmas. She told me the day you learned to ride. She told me the day you read your first book clean through. I have known you for 14 years, Willow Grant. You just did not know me." Willow pressed the shawl against her eyes. "I am sorry, Mrs. Wilson." "For what, sweet girl?" "For taking 14 years?" Mrs. Wilson put her small, thin hand on top of Willow's. "You are right on time, child. You are right on time." There was a knock at the door. Mrs. Wilson did not rise. The lieutenant, who had been standing quietly by the window the whole time, moved first. He opened the door. He spoke to someone. He closed it. He turned back. "Miss Grant." "Yes." "Moses Haddon has ridden up to the gate of the fort, with 7 men. The colonel has told him to step down and come alone and leave his men outside. He has refused. The colonel has told him he will be arrested if he does not. He is considering." Willow stood up. "Lieutenant?" "Ma'am." "I want to be in that office." "Ma'am." "I want to be standing in that office when the colonel tells him." "Ma'am, that is not—" "Lieutenant." "Ma'am, the colonel specifically. You take me to that office." "Ma'am, I cannot." "Lieutenant, I have walked 11 miles on a broken ankle and ridden 20 miles with a shot man bleeding on my chest. And I have told a United States colonel the name of the man who killed my mother, and I have carried a letter in a Bible for 4 weeks, and I will tell you one more time. You take me to that office." The lieutenant looked at Mrs. Wilson. Mrs. Wilson did not look at the lieutenant. Mrs. Wilson was looking at Willow, and there was something in her eyes that Willow had not seen in 4 weeks, something that was not pity and not fear and not warmth, and Willow did not know yet that it was the thing her mother had looked like the last time her mother had smiled. "Take her, son," Mrs. Wilson said. "Ma'am." "You heard me?" The lieutenant took her. Willow walked across that yard with her ankles screaming and her dress stiff with dried blood and Mrs. Wilson's shawl around her shoulders, and she did not limp because Moses Haddon could not see her limp, not today, not ever again. At the gate, through the narrow slit, the sentries used to speak to riders, she could hear him. She could hear his voice. She could hear him laying out the story he had written in the saddle all morning. She could hear him say calm as water that his stepdaughter had been out of her mind with grief since her mother's passing. She could hear him say he had brought the preacher who had buried her. She could hear him say that he had brought a surgeon from Omaha. She could hear him say, in a voice warm enough to light a lamp, by that all he wanted was his sweet girl back. Willow stopped walking 10 feet from the office door. "Lieutenant." "Ma'am." "Before I go in." "Ma'am." "You tell the colonel I am here." "Yes, ma'am." "And you tell him, Lieutenant, you tell him that the first voice Moses Haddon hears inside that office is not going to be the colonel's. It is going to be mine. That is how this has to end. Do you understand me?" The lieutenant looked at her for a long moment. Then he lifted his hand to his hat. "Ma'am," he said. "I do." He went in. Willow Grant stood outside that office door, and she straightened Mrs. Wilson's shawl on her shoulders, and she breathed once deep, the way her mother had taught her to breathe, and she waited. Behind her, across the yard, a door opened. She turned her head. Ethan Galloway was standing in the surgeon's doorway, one arm in a sling, his shirt half-buttoned, his face the color of paper, holding the frame with his good hand to keep himself upright. He did not say anything. He only met her eyes across the yard, and he nodded once. Willow nodded back. Then the lieutenant opened the office door, and she walked through it. Moses Haddon was already inside. He was standing at ease in front of the colonel's desk, hat in his left hand, right hand folded over it, the way a man folds his hand over a hymnal in church. Reverend Amos Tate stood 2 paces behind him, Bible under one arm, and Elias Keene stood at the door with his thumbs hooked in his belt. 3 men. 3 stories. 3 mouths to bury her mother a second time. The door closed behind Willow. Moses did not turn for a full second. He let the silence sit. He knew how to let a silence sit. He had been letting silences sit at the head of her table for 14 years, and every one of them had been a weapon. Then he turned. His face went soft the way it always went soft when an audience was watching. "Willow, sweet girl. Do not call me that. Honey. Do not call me that either." Moses's eyes flicked just once to Colonel Ross. He was measuring the room. He was counting the walls. He was in the half-second it took him to lay his hat down on the colonel's desk, already writing the next page of his story. "Colonel," he said smooth. "I apologize. My stepdaughter has been under a great strain. You can see she is exhausted. You can see the state of her dress. I have been chasing her for 4 weeks, sir, out of love, and I am grateful to the United States Army for finding her before something terrible happened in the prairie." "Mr. Haddon," Colonel Ross said. "Sir?" "Sit down." "Sir, I would rather stand—" "Mr. Haddon, sit down." Moses sat. Willow did not. She walked 3 steps into the room, and she stopped beside the colonel's desk, and she put her hand flat on the wood, and she looked at the man who had killed her mother, and for the first time in 14 years, she did not drop her eyes. "Mr. Haddon." "Yes, Willow." "I said do not call me that." "Miss Grant, then." "You will call me Miss Grant." "Miss Grant." He tried the smile again. It did not land this time. "Miss Grant. I have come a long way for you, sweet. I have come a long way for you. I am tired. I am dusty. I have slept 2 hours in 3 days. I ask you in front of this good colonel to come home." "No." "Miss Grant." "The answer is no, Mr. Haddon. It will continue to be no for the rest of my life. And you are going to sit in that chair and you are going to listen to me because today is the only day in 14 years that you have ever had to listen to me, and I am going to use every second of it." Moses's jaw tightened by 1 degree. It was the smallest motion. Willow saw it the way a woman sees the first flick of a snake's tail. "Colonel," Moses said, and his voice was still smooth, but something underneath it had gone thin. "I would like the record to reflect that I am being detained. The record will reflect, Mr. Haddon, that you are being heard." "I was not told I was being heard, sir. I was told I was collecting my daughter." "You were told to step down off your horse, Mr. Haddon, and come alone into this office. You did both." Now you are being heard. That is how it works in my fort, sir." Moses did not answer. Reverend Amos Tate cleared his throat. "Colonel, if I may. I am Reverend Amos Tate of the First Methodist Church of Red Cedar. I have been the family's pastor for Reverend." "Yes, Colonel." "You will speak when I ask you to." "Yes, Colonel." "I have not asked you." "No, Colonel." "Sit." The preacher sat. Willow did not look at him. She did not have the room in her chest for him yet. She would in a minute. "Mr. Haddon?" "Yes, Miss Grant. On the morning of June the 4th, at a little past 6, you came into the kitchen of our house in Red Cedar County. My mother was at the stove. I was in the pantry. You did not know I was in the pantry. You had told me the night before to ride out to the Petersons at dawn. I had not gone because my horse had thrown a shoe, and I was sitting on the pantry floor, rubbing tallow into the hoof, and I did not want to tell you I had not gone, because I knew what you did to my mother when I did not do what you said." Moses's face did not move. "I heard you come in. I heard you ask her where the coffee was. I heard her say it was not ready. I heard you hit her, not with your hand, Mr. Haddon, with the iron, the one we used for the shutters, the one you kept on the hook by the back door." The colonel's pen was moving across the page. It did not stop. "I heard her go down, Mr. Haddon. I heard her try to say my name. I heard you hit her again. And I heard her go quiet. And then I heard you stand there in my mother's kitchen for almost a full minute doing nothing. And then I heard you walk out the back door with the iron in your hand. And I heard you walk down the path to the old dry well behind the smokehouse. And I heard the sound the iron made when it hit the bottom. Miss Grant." "I am not finished, Mr. Haddon." "Colonel, this is fantasy." I said, "I am not finished." The colonel did not look up. "Let her finish, Mr. Haddon." Moses sat back. His hand where it rested on the arm of the chair had begun to tremble. It was the smallest tremor. He covered it with his other hand, but Willow had seen it. She had watched that hand her whole life. She had known the moment that hand was going to tremble before that hand had known it. "When I heard the back door close," she said, "I came out of the pantry. I crossed the kitchen. I sat down on the floor next to my mother." She was alive. Just. She opened her eyes one more time and she said my name. And then she said one more thing, and I have never told anyone what she said, Mr. Haddon, and I am not going to tell you today. But she said it. And then she died. And I sat there on that kitchen floor with her for 1 hour, and then I washed her, and I dressed her, and I carried her to her bed, and I walked 2 miles to town, and I told the deputy she had passed in her sleep because I knew Mr. Haddon. I knew that if I said a single word of truth that morning, you would have killed me by nightfall. Moses's eyes had gone flat. "Sweet girl, and for 4 weeks, Mr. Haddon, I let you believe I did not know. I let you believe I was grieving. I let you pat my head at the grave. I let you stand behind me at the reception. I let you sleep 1 wall away from me for 28 nights, while I sewed my mother's derringer into the lining of my own coat, and while I read the letter she left me in her Bible, and while I waited for the first day you rode out of the county, because I knew that was the only day I would ever have a head start. And 4 nights ago, Mr. Haddon, you rode out to Plattsmouth, and I went. Willow." "Miss Grant. Miss Grant." Moses's voice had changed. It had dropped. It was no longer the voice that had buried her mother. It was the voice that had taught a 9-year-old girl to fire a pistol behind a barn. "You are a very clever young woman." "I am my mother's daughter, Mr. Haddon." "You are." "Say her name." "Sweet girl." "Say her name, Mr. Haddon, in this office, in front of this colonel. Say the name of the woman you married and the woman you killed. Say it." Moses's mouth opened. It did not close. He did not say it. He could not say it. And every person in that room saw it. The colonel saw it. The lieutenant in the doorway saw it. Elias Keene saw it. And Elias Keene, who had hunted her across 11 miles of prairie the night before, took 1 small step back from his post against the door, as if the floor beneath him had just shifted a 1/4 inch. Willow did not take her eyes off her stepfather. "Colonel Ross?" "Yes, Miss Grant. The iron is in the old dry well behind the smokehouse. Second stone from the bottom on the east wall. My mother's blood is on it. Her hair is on it. I went back the morning after, and I saw it, and I did not move it, because I wanted it there when a man like you was ready to look. Miss Grant. Yes, Colonel. Thank you. Reverend Tate. Amos Tate lifted his head. Yes, Miss Grant. You wrote the death certificate. I know, Miss Grant, the deputy wrote. You dictated it. You dictated it, Reverend. The deputy cannot read. You know the deputy cannot read. You stood over his shoulder, and you told him every word to write, and he wrote it, and you signed underneath, and my mother was in the ground the next morning. Miss Grant, You took money for it. That is not $200, Reverend, in a brown envelope. You keep the envelope in the drawer of the desk in your office behind the second Bible on the top shelf. I found it 3 weeks ago. I did not take it. I did not need to. It is still there. The Colonel's rider will find it before sundown tomorrow. I am telling you all of this, Reverend, not because I expect you to confess. I am telling you because I want you to know that you are done, today, in this room. Amos Tate's face had gone the color of flour. He did not answer. He sank back into his chair. Moses Haddon very slowly began to stand up. Mr. Haddon. Sir. Sit down. Colonel, I demand. Sit down. Moses sat. Mr. Haddon, you are under arrest. You are under arrest for the murder of Helen Grant Haddon. You are under arrest on my authority as the commanding officer of Fort Kearney in the state of Nebraska, pending the arrival of a United States Marshal out of Omaha, who will escort you to the county seat at Plattsmouth to stand before a judge. You will not ride. You will not speak. You will not be permitted to communicate with any of the 7 men you left outside that gate. If you attempt any of those things, sir, the lieutenant at this door will shoot you in the leg, and I will sign the paper myself. Do you understand? Moses's hand was shaking openly now. He looked at Willow. He looked at her for a long time, and for the first time in 14 years, Willow Grant looked back at her stepfather and saw under all the smoothness and the smiles and the stories, the thing that had been sitting there the whole time. The thing her mother had seen on their wedding day. The thing her mother had written about in the letter in the Bible. The thing that had no name in any language Willow had been taught because the only people who knew its name were the people who did not survive to tell anyone. A small man. That was all. Moses Haddon was a small man. He had been a small man her whole life, and she had been too young and too frightened to know it, and her mother had died without ever getting to say it out loud. And Willow Grant, standing in a colonel's office in Fort Kearney, Nebraska, on a hot morning at the beginning of summer, said it for her. You are a small man, Mr. Haddon. Moses's face broke. Just for 1 second. Just once. It was the only true thing his face had ever done in front of her. And then it was gone, and the smoothness came back over it like oil over water. But she had seen it. She would remember it. She would carry the memory of it the rest of her life, and it would be the thing that let her sleep. Lieutenant. Sir. Take them. It took 3 soldiers to take Moses Haddon out of that office. He did not fight. He only went very, very still the way a trapped animal goes, still, and he let them take his arms, and he let them walk him out the door. Reverend Amos Tate went without a word, head bowed, Bible still under his arm. Elias Keene, who had been standing at the door, did not wait to be taken. He stepped forward, unbuckled his own gun belt, laid it on the colonel's desk, and said quietly, Sir, I did not know. I want that in the record. I did not know about the iron. I did not know about the kitchen. I hunted a woman through the grass for $1,000, sir, and that is bad enough, and I will take what is coming to me for that. But I did not know. Colonel Ross looked at him for a long moment. Mr. Keene. Sir, that is the first decent thing a man has said in this office all morning. It will be in the record. Thank you, sir. You will still go to Plattsmouth. Yes, sir, I know I will. Go. Elias Keene went. The door closed. Willow Grant stood in the middle of that office with her hand still on the desk, and she did not move for a long time, because she was not sure her legs were going to hold her if she did. Colonel Ross stood up. "Miss Grant?" "Yes, sir." "Sit down, ma'am." "Yes, sir." She sat. Her legs gave the second she did. Colonel Harlan Ross poured water from a pitcher on his desk into a tin cup, and he walked around and he set it in her hand himself. And for a little while he did not say anything at all. He only stood there beside her chair, gray-mustached, straight-backed, and he waited until her hand had stopped shaking around the cup. "Miss Grant?" "Yes, sir. Your mother would be proud of you." Willow did not answer for a moment. Then she said very quietly, "I know, sir." "Yes, ma'am. I can see that you know." "I have known it for 4 weeks, sir. I just had to get here to say it." "You got here?" "Yes, sir, I did." Outside the office, the yard of Fort Kearney was already beginning to move, the way a yard moves when a colonel has given an order. Riders were saddling. A rider was on the way to Omaha. A rider was on the way to Plattsmouth. A rider was on the way to Red Cedar, to the old dry well, and to a drawer behind a second Bible on the top shelf of a preacher's office. And Willow Grant sat in a chair in the office of an American colonel in a borrowed shawl and a ruined dress with dried blood stiff across her chest, and she let herself for the first time in 4 weeks, let herself only sit. The lieutenant knocked a little later. "Ma'am?" "Yes." "Mr. Galloway is asking after you." Willow stood, her ankle held. Ethan Galloway was sitting on the step outside the surgeon's. His arm was bandaged from shoulder to elbow. His color was coming back. He had buttoned his shirt the rest of the way, though he had gotten the buttons wrong, and Willow, walking up to him across that yard, thought that this was the first ordinary human thing she had seen any man do in 4 weeks. She sat down beside him on the step. Neither of them spoke for a long time. "Ma'am?" "Mr. Galloway, I heard most of it through the wall." "Did you?" "I did." "I am sorry, Mr. Galloway. You should not have had to hear that." "Ma'am." "Yes. I am grateful I heard it." "Why?" "Because, ma'am, now I know." "Know what?" "What a woman sounds like when she stops being afraid." Willow's eyes filled. She did not hide it this time. She let them fill. She let one tear go, and then another, and then she wiped them with the back of her hand, and she laughed. It was a small laugh. It was the first laugh she had laughed in 4 weeks. It came out strange and cracked and too short, and Ethan Galloway, sitting on the step beside her with his bad arm in a sling, laughed with her, quiet and low, and for 1 minute on the front step of a surgeon's office in a United States Army fort, 2 people who had met less than 12 hours earlier sat side by side and laughed the way people laugh when something that has been pressing on their chest their entire life has finally been lifted off. "Mr. Galloway." "Yes, ma'am." "What will you do now?" "Ma'am, I will go back to my cabin, when I can ride, in a week, maybe 2. "Your cabin has a broken door. I will fix it. A broken stove. I will fix that too. A cellar full of footprints. Ma'am, a man who has lived alone 11 years does not mind footprints. He minds the quiet." Willow looked at him. "Mr. Galloway." "Yes, ma'am." "I do not know yet what I am going to do." "No, ma'am. Mrs. Wilson has offered me a room above her shop. She has offered me work. She has offered me every kindness a woman can offer another woman, and I have said yes to all of it for now because I have not slept 4 full hours in 4 weeks, and I need a roof, and I need a week." "Yes, ma'am." "But Mr. Galloway." "Yes, ma'am. In a week or in 2, when I have slept, I will come out to your cabin. I will bring a wagon. I will bring wood for the door. I will bring a new hinge for the stove, and I will sit down across your table from you, and I will drink a cup of coffee that you have made, and I will thank you properly. Not the way a frightened woman thanks a man who saved her life. The way a woman thanks a man. Do you understand what I'm saying?" Ethan Galloway looked at her for a long moment. "Yes, ma'am." "Good." "Ma'am?" "Yes, Mr. Galloway." "I will be there." "I know you will." "Ma'am?" "Yes." "I will have the coffee ready." "I know you will." She stood. She touched his good shoulder with the flat of her hand, only for a second. And then she turned, and she walked back across the yard toward Mrs. Wilson's shop, and her ankle held every step of the way. And Ethan Galloway watched her go with his bad arm in a sling, and a small, quiet smile on the corner of his mouth that he did not try to hide from anyone, because there was no one left in the world who needed to hide anything anymore. In Red Cedar County by sundown the next day, a rider pulled a rusted iron out of a dry well behind a smokehouse. In Plattsmouth by the end of that week, a United States Marshal laid 4 separate charges at the feet of a judge who had been waiting for them for longer than he knew. In Omaha by the end of that month, Moses Haddon stood in a courtroom, and he did not speak because there was nothing left in the world for him to say. And in Fort Kearny, above a small dress shop, a young woman slept for 16 hours straight, under a quilt sewn by a stranger who had loved her mother 31 years. And when she woke, she sat up in a bed that was her own, in a room that was her own, in a life that was her own. And she said her mother's name out loud for the first time in 4 weeks, and no one hit her for it, and no one ever would again. Her name was Helen Grant. She had been the steadiest hand in Nebraska, and her daughter Willow Grant was going to spend the rest of her life proving it.